Good morning. My name is Ryan Bast of the Motor Safety Association, and this morning's webinar is on influencing safe behavior. This is the 19th webinar, which will be loaded up to our website. And just as a reminder, I've muted all of the microphones except my microphone. So if throughout the course of the webinar, if any questions do arise, please enter them into the chat box. And at the end of the webinar, I will go through and answer any questions if they do arise. So who is the Motor Safety Association? A lot of you have been to some of our webinars in the past and know who we are, so I won't spend a lot of time explaining. However, in the province of Saskatchewan, we assist with the health and safety services of any business that sells or services anything with an engine or steering wheel. So if you are looking for more information, please feel free to check out our website, which is listed on the slide, as well as our Twitter handle, if you're looking for more information about who we are. So let's get started. The reason we are here today for the webinar on influencing safe behavior, we're going to go over these 5 points. What is safe behavior? We're going to talk about shortcuts. We're going to go over communication and perception. We will discuss safe behaviors and safe attitudes, and we will review with some ideas on staff engagement. So my goal of the webinar is not to make you a behavioral or people-based safety specialist. We're just going to touch on each of these topics to make you think about safety in a different way, perhaps with a bit of philosophy on human behavior and why people do what they do when it comes to health and safety. So the first section, what is safe behavior? And safe behavior is how we react to social and physical aspects of our environment. And sometimes people might find unsafe behavior to be rewarding. For example, they may feel that they can get the job done quicker and they may be more comfortable not wearing personal protective equipment. Whereas safe behavior could sometimes, they may feel that they're being punished. I'm wearing the supplied personal protective equipment. It may feel uncomfortable, or the jobs take longer, and it takes me longer to suit up with the personal protective equipment. And safe behavior truly is based on your attitudes, beliefs, perception, culture, and age. One's upbringing and environment truly drive their safe behaviors. And it is true that not all people are the same. So let's look a little bit about the evolution of safe behavior. And is this what your childhood looked like? Perhaps riding on the fender of a tractor? Well, if so, I hope you weren't pulling a rotary cutter like this person is on this picture. But what I'd like to mention is, when we think about safe behaviors, would you put your kid or grandkid on a tractor fender like that today? I would assume that one has not or will not. And that's how our safe behavior has evolved, and it's changed over the times. And the same thing has happened with automobiles, and there's been a lot of evolution in automobile safety. For example, in the 1970s, an auto manufacturer introduced a safeguard that would not allow you to start your vehicle unless the safety belt was on. However, society was not ready for that drastic of a change, and auto mechanics disconnected most of these safeguards. So instead, we got that annoying buzzer alarm, which is still in use today when the safety belt is not on. And what's interesting enough, now that 30, 40 years have passed, today that invention would be accepted by today's standards, and an invention like that had come forward. So, and we do see similar devices like that on powered mobile equipment, tractors, combines, riding lawn tractors. These machines will not start unless someone's sitting in the seat. So we have seen some of the safety evolve in that category. How about our desensitized behavior? Think about how many people used to really be afraid of falling off a piece of equipment. So the first time you may have worked on top of a combine, were you afraid of falling off? But after years of being on top of a combine, You may have become desensitized to falling, and now that might not even bother you. Remember the Chainsaw Massacre movie of the 1970s? When that first came out, that would have been very scary. Now, after repeated exposure, this may not be scary because of desensitization and evolution. Let's look at section 2, shortcuts. It is humans' nature to take the path of least resistance. Humans want to be efficient, to get the job done at all costs, and may injure themselves. Sometimes we see technicians that are paid a flat rate have a higher chance of injury because they're working faster to get more done and may take more shortcuts. Why would I go and take the time to put on my personal protective equipment as I could be done the job by then, is a comment that we sometimes hear. For example, I can take a chair, set it on my desk right now, and I can change a light bulb in about 5 minutes. Or I can get a step ladder, change the light bulb, and put the ladder away, and it'll take 20 minutes. So it takes a lot longer to do it the right way. And sometimes you may get away with taking a shortcut, but sooner or later, your luck may change. I can sometimes get quite frustrated when I hear people say, I've always done it that way, and nothing has happened to me. They have been very lucky. Which kind of leads me to thinking about this slide when we look at shortcuts. I attended a conference where the presenter asked the attendees to put your index finger in the palm of the person beside you. Then he said, on the count of 3, try to pull your finger out, and the other person try to close their hand to catch the finger. And you'll never guess what happened. After counting 1, 2, and before the presenter got to 3, people were already starting to pull their finger out and trying to close their palm to catch the other person's finger beside them. And this really validates that shortcut competitive nature that humans have. In this situation, they were cheating to win. But even though there not really was a prize to squeeze the other person's finger, but there's an example of a shortcut at all costs to win or complete the task in the fastest time. And I know it's easy for me to present this webinar today and tell you people and to advise, don't take shortcuts, and to pass that message on to our members and to follow the safe work procedures. Grab the ladder instead of putting the chair on top of your desk to change the light bulb. But if I was in your shoes, or if others were in your shoes, would I do the same? Would their behavior be the same? Just a little bit to think about as we close out that section. The third section on communication and perception, and sometimes the way we communicate and perception and terminology that we use within our dealerships can affect safe behaviors. For example, does your dealership employ a safety officer? When we use terminology like the word officer, people feel that an officer is an enforcer of legislation and wanting to catch them for not following the rules. So keep that in mind when we use different terminology. It may affect people's perception and the way we communicate within our dealerships. So let's talk a little bit more about communication or the lack of communication. Do I give clear directions when I'm advising a staff member on how to complete a task at our dealership? Do you fully understand what you're supposed to be doing? So did I talk at an understandable speed, clarity, and language? Do I follow up to see that I'm understood? So if I'm the service manager and I ask the technician to do a task, and do I say, do you understand what you're supposed to be doing? Can you explain that back to me? Just to validate that we understand. Sometimes the lack of communication can be quite dangerous. And people are afraid to ask for clarification. We sometimes see this, especially in young workers, aged 18 to 24. Sometimes they may just say yes, yes, as they are eager to please and afraid to ask for repetition of directions. How about perception? This picture was floating around the internet last year. What is the color you perceive this dress to be? Is it white and brown, white and yellow, blue and black? And really, it depends on the contrast of your monitor. But the point I'm trying to make is people see different things. What I perceive as safe and you perceive as safe may be three different things, such as the three different pictures that we see on the slide today. So keep that in mind, that people have different perceptions based on their attitudes towards safe behavior as to what they perceive as safe behavior or not. So let's look at section 4. Have you ever thought about if you can change safe behaviors but not safe attitudes? And safe behaviors and safe attitudes are based on your experiences. If you have been affected by an injury where someone has fallen, your attitude may be strong-willed to advocate for fall protection. And then your behavior would be to wear fall protection and promote its importance. An attitude truly is important. I'm only working here until I find another job, so safety does not really matter to me right now. That's quite sad. Negative attitude can really affect people's participation rate in your health and safety program and can equal pushback. Are you just fixing that combine? Or it depends on one's attitude. How do we look at things? I'm performing a critical repair so harvest can be completed to feed the world's hungry. It all depends on our values and our attitudes, which truly do influence our safe behaviors, which drives us into our safety cultures. Here is a slide that gets you thinking about safe behaviors and safe attitudes. If someone has the qualities on the slide, they can be trained to work safely at your facility and positively lead your safety culture. So keep that in mind when you are looking at different people's capabilities. If they have a strong attitude and they can work safely, they can lead your safety culture, which truly is what we are trying to influence, a positive safety culture. And there are different ways to generate that synergy and create that positive safety culture. One of the ways is to remind someone before they start the task, opposed to correcting them after the task, or if they're doing it wrong. So for example, it's a good idea to wear your face shield when using the grinder to avoid an eye injury. So we're making it positive. Instead of, John, you forgot to wear your face shield again. What's your problem? Why can't you remember anything? So as you can see, if we can pre-warn someone before a task starts and make it positive by leading on by saying, as you know, and then remind them of the safe behavior, you're going to be far more effective in influencing that safety culture and safe behavior opposed to negatively correcting someone for doing it wrong. So that might be a tip that one might want to try. Truly, the safety culture of an organization is shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. So if the leader tolerates a certain level of safe or unsafe behavior, or anything in between, whatever level that leader accepts will be the safety culture level at your organization. So that's something I want you to think about today. What about common sense? Is common sense common? What is common to you may not be very common to me. So I'm from rural Saskatchewan, and what's common to my past, such as perhaps handling livestock, driving on gravel roads, prairie blizzards, and operating farm equipment, would be common to my upbringings. But if you were to plot me in downtown New York, I'd be oblivious and not have the same common sense as a New Yorker. So what is deemed as common sense to a prairie kid and a New Yorker are two different things. So the point I'm trying to make is common sense is not so common. It depends on your upbringing, your age, your experiences. These all determine your common sense, and not everyone has a set of common sense or values that one would expect. There's a lot of different cultural variables that coincide with common sense as well, such as sometimes people try it first to see what happens, and if they do not get hurt, it was a success. So the people in this picture, they may not believe that their behavior is risky because all they're trying to do is look for some shade. So if no one's got hurt doing this before, this behavior will continue because they have this could be common sense for these folks, that they may not realize that this behavior is risky. So just a reminder, when you're performing a task, take a step back and do a risk assessment and think about the job before you do it. These all lead us to determining risk. And people do have a different tolerance of risk. I want to explain this slide. The red line is what the safe work procedure is. So it's a straight line. This is what we're supposed to be doing on this task to do the job safely. The curved line is what actually happens. And as you can see, not every job goes as planned. For example, if I'm fixing a tractor, and perhaps I may not be able to reach the broken part, so I may need to use a stool or some sort of a device that allows me to reach the area I'm working on. Or if a bolt is seized, I may need to use a torch or a crane or a jack if I have to do some lifting to access a certain area. When these variables to the condition of the equipment I'm servicing arise, that's when we stray off of the safe work procedure. As you can see, the variable is the curved line, and that comes up throughout the procedure. But what happens is, are we thinking about the risk when we stray off of the procedure? So as soon as we stray off of the procedure, that's when the risk arises. Those are the variables, and that's when incidents occur. So if we follow the procedure, we're going to be safe, but due to various conditions of the equipment, and as these variables arise, this is when the jobs don't go as planned, and that's when an incident can arise. So again, it's always critical to reevaluate these tasks and determine the risk when we do stray off the procedure, because that's when an incident can occur at your workplace. So let's talk a bit about routines and complacency. If I drive the same roads for years without an incident, that route now becomes routine. And I might believe that I'm not going to be injured because I've drove those same roads for years. And the same can be true for looking at our dealerships. Are staff doing the same repetitive tasks? Perhaps people are not thinking about the steps and they become complacent because they're doing highly repetitive tasks again and again. And this picture does describe complacency quite well. The person says, "Follow me. This way is always safe," as the road ends and has a steep drop in it. So that person became complacent because of the routine. But really try to take this example into your dealerships and think about your workplaces. Are the workers doing those tasks that are repetitive? Have they become complacent? As mentioned, if I'm always climbing on top of a tractor or a combine, this has now become routine for technicians, and they may become complacent about the possibility of falling if no one's fallen from your dealership or if they haven't had a near miss regarding a close call when it comes to falling. So routines and complacency are critical in influencing safe behavior, as is being mindful. Injuries can occur because of habits, routines, and complacency, as well as not being mindful. So people may think about what you should be doing and behave safely. So being engaged, I'm physically present, but am I really here? Was I mindful or was I mindless in the process? Was I aware of my behaviors and that they were risky? So when we're not thinking about what we're supposed to be doing, that's when an injury can occur as well. And there's other factors. What about stress at home or in one's personal life? If the workers bring that with them into the workplace, that can affect their mindfulness if they're not thinking about what they should be doing. So concentrate on your work that you're doing. Be mindful of the hazards. And I think this picture sums it up well. Be mindful even if your mind is full. I'm going to touch a little bit about breaking a habit. And once we get into the point of doing a procedure for the same way for years, and if I followed the procedure, except the safety component which I've left out, but I've never gotten hurt, that's my habit. I'm going to be doing that procedure that way. And if I haven't followed the safe work procedure, the safety component of it, my habit is going to be to continue working that way. You can try to correct my behavior, but you're likely not going to have any luck. the best way for me to change my habit is to start over. So review the safe work procedure with that worker and remind them of each step in the way and make sure that the safety is factored into it. Because when safety is not a part of the equation and this becomes a habit to do it unsafe, we have to relearn how to do it safely. The same thing goes with putting on your safety belt in your car. That should be a habit by now. Unfortunately, there are still a high number of tickets for people not wearing their safety belts. Have you ever heard the saying, it takes about 21 days to a month to form a habit? So if I were to decide that I'm not going to wear my safety belt today, and if I carry that behavior on for about a month, that will soon be my new habit, not to wear my safety belt. And that's how quick things can change. If we keep doing it a different way, and after 21 days to a month, that will be the new habit that we have formed. And texting while driving is another example of an awful habit. Due to enforcement, what's happening now is people are trying to hide their phones and text, so they may have their phone in their lap and they're looking down at it so they don't get a ticket. So they're hiding what they're doing. The habit of texting is still there, but their behavior has changed. People are trying to hide the fact that they are texting so that they don't get a ticket. So to influence safe behavior, we have to change that habit. Let's talk about safety rules. If people believe in safety rules at your dealership, will they follow them? Are workers involved in the development of safety rules? If so, you likely have better buy-in with workers following safety rules, opposed to hanging up a list of rules in the coffee room or on the safety bulletin board and saying, here's the new safety rules, I need everybody to follow them or else. You want to influence people to work safely. So if people believe in the rules and the rules are helping them, there's a higher likelihood they will follow the safety rules. So for example, if one of your safety rules is that eye protection is required at all times in your service shop, you can explain that to people by saying, this is one of our safety rules to wear eye protection at our dealership and our service department at all times. And this is important because I want you not to lose your vision and be able to see the things that are important to you in your life. So that is why it is our rule to wear eye protection in our dealership, not just we have to wear eye protection and not explain it. So if people have that understanding of how the rules can help them, you're going to have better compliance and better people buying in and utilizing and following the rules. If you don't do that, what could happen is you can spend a lot of money and invest in this personal protective equipment, but if people do not change their behavior, they're not going to wear it. So it's up to you to explain those benefits of the personal protective equipment and the importance of using it, and this will help you to become very effective in changing the safe work behaviors of your staff so that they follow the safety rules because they know they're there to help them. Let's talk a little about audits and checklists. And when we're looking at safe behaviors and safe attitudes, do you ever think that people might behave differently when they're being observed by someone with a clipboard and a checklist? And don't get me wrong, audits are a great tool, but I ask myself, do they work well? Is it your belief to work differently when you're being observed with someone with a clipboard and a checklist? I know my driving behavior changes when a police officer is following me on the road, so I'm behaving a bit differently when I know I'm being watched. So I wonder if that's the same when it comes to audits and checklists. And sometimes these audits and checklists may not be as accurate because people are behaving differently while they're being observed. So these audit observations and checklists are just a snapshot in time of behavior observed and may not usually tell the full story when they are being observed. So keep that in mind, that audits and checklists, they're a great tool in safe behaviors and safe attitudes, but people may behave differently when they're being watched. And that leads us into talking about accountability. If I'm going to discipline someone for not wearing personal protective equipment, Am I naive to believe that this is going to change their behavior? So if I'm out there with my clipboard and checklist, writing you up for not wearing your personal protective equipment, do I think that you have now seen the light, you're a believer, and you're going to wear your personal protective equipment at all time? So by disciplining someone, will that change their behavior in the long run? Do you personally think that will give you long-term compliance by disciplining someone for not wearing their personal protective equipment? Well, something else you may want to consider trying is, if someone isn't following the safety rules at your dealership, send them home for the day, but pay them. Give them a blank piece of paper and tell them, today you've got two choices that you can make. You can either take today off and you can look for a new job because your unsafe behavior is not welcomed at our dealership. Or if you're serious about coming back, take this blank piece of paper and I want you to fill it out. I want you to write down your safety plan, how you're going to change your safe behavior, and why you want to work at our dealership. And this is another way of reinforcing that safe work behavior. And you might want to try something like that as an example, because imagine the message that sets. This place sent me home for the day with pay because they care about my health and safety and they want me to work safe. If I'm not going to work safe, they don't want me at this dealership. So by influencing safe behavior and getting people to come up with their own plan and how they're going to work safe and how they're going to be a part of your dealership is something that you can hold them to accountability on. And one thing I want to touch on too, accountability, it does not always need to be negative. There's accommodation, or you can make it positive. Some places they use, say, sheets of paper that may be the size of recipe cards, and they call it a behavioral card. So they may put their logo on from their organization. So everybody has one of these cards. So if they see somebody working positively and using safe behaviors in their dealership, so if they're following the rules and behaving safely, what they can do with these cards is somebody completes the card and gives it to someone who's working safely. So it's utilizing that workplace responsibility system where we're accountable for each other and we're caring about each other's personal safety. So using these behavioral cards really reinforces positive behavior as it's happening in real time. And it's a great way to get people to watch out for each other. One point I will also add to this slide is when you're using your accountability or compliance program, just remember to be fair. Be consistent when you're holding people accountable or offering accommodation or offering praise. Section 5, I'm going to go over a few ideas to increase staff engagement, which is going to influence safe behaviors. The first one being, what about implementing a safety suggestion box program within your workplace? People who actively care want to improve the workplace. They want to be heard and contribute ideas to better their workplace. But the thing to remember is, if you receive these safety suggestions, don't leave people hanging. Remember to act on these suggestions and communicate the progress. For example, 60% of the ideas have been implemented, 30% are in progress, and another 10% are being discussed. The Toyota manufacturing plant in Kentucky has had huge success with their safety suggestion box program. In the first month, they received 35,000 suggestions from a staff of 600 people. That's a lot of suggestions. That's a lot of input that people have into improving their workplace safety. So it cost Toyota $1 million to process and implement their suggestions to date at their Kentucky plant, but they have saved $5 million in efficiencies and safety and productivity when it comes to safety. So that's a great way to get staff engagement. Another way to increase staff engagement is celebrating safety. And there's a couple of different points I'm going to touch on. The first one being a performance evaluation review. So when people's jobs are reviewed for performance, do you just strictly review their performance? Or have you ever considered reviewing the individual's employee safe behaviors? For example, do they wear their personal protective equipment consistently? Do they follow the safe work procedures? Do they commend others for working safely? This may be something you may want to consider in your performance reviews. And this can engage people to work safely if they know that this is being monitored. This is a part of my performance review at our dealership. Not only do I have to fix that tractor and do the job on my work order, my safety is being evaluated, and it's a part of my monetary wages at my dealership. But you want to be careful once we start using monetary values and gifts. We want to be careful that we're not lucrative and we're not encouraging people with lucrative gifts or things that are expensive on having a dealership that's claim free, because this could possibly lead to pressure into not to report an injury or to hide a claim in the future. And I know that's not the intention of the program. I just want to point that out there. But what you may have better luck is rewarding days and celebrating and recognizing those days incident-free. So as you can see this on this picture, they've had 90 days, they call it accident-free in this picture, but they're having a pizza party. So that's a way of getting staff engaged. But I said it's not so lucrative that not everyone's getting a leather jacket or a very expensive gift or a cash incentive for being claims free. Another way to increase staff engagement is to possibly look at rewarding near-miss reporting. So what you could do is all staff who bring forward a near miss for the month of February, their name's going to go into a draw for a $5 gift card. So that may be an option for you as well, to collect that staff engagement, to get those ideas, and then to act on those ideas, because those near misses truly are like gold. Because if we can control a near miss before it turns into an accident, an incident, or an injury, or property damage, we're going to be really successful in influencing safe behaviors and having a positive safety culture at our dealership. What about toolbox talks? That's an excellent way to promote staff engagement, and it's so great at being proactive. But you remember earlier in this webinar, I was talking about different ways we can positively influence safety culture. And by having toolbox talks, it allows you to discuss those jobs that the staff are going to be working on and offer those reminders on how to behave safely on the upcoming jobs. So instead of correcting someone for doing it wrong, as we know that today we're going to be working on this certain job. So at a toolbox talk, we can communicate, as you know, today we're going to be working on this job, and these are the personal protective equipment you should be wearing. This is how to do it safe. So as you can see, that's how we can influence safe behavior. We're reminding someone how to do the job safely, opposed to coming up to them and, hey, why aren't you doing this right? Don't you know how to do that properly? And correcting their unsafe behavior. But if you are looking for more information on toolbox talks, we do have a toolbox talk webinar on our website. You can review at a later date to give you some ideas about toolbox delivery methods. Safety perception surveys is another important way in creating staff engagement. It's a very proactive activity and allows you to see what people's perception is of safety at your business. The Motor Safety Association has really led the charge on perception surveys. We've been using perception surveys for many years for core maintenance and we've been using it for other times within people's dealerships to help them get started with their safety management system. And safety perception surveys are giving us that information that people can utilize to implement corrective actions in their dealership or to take action. But what I want to mention is, if someone takes the time to fill out a perception survey, be sure to share those results with your staff. If they've taken the time to complete the survey, they want to see the results. So for example, if the perception surveys reveal that the category of inspections are weak at your dealership, there may be an opportunity to develop an inspection program. And this shows staff that you're listening and you're being proactive. You're not waiting for a piece of equipment to fail, but instead implementing a preventative maintenance inspection program to identify concerns before an incident arises. So that's something you may want to consider. And when you do get your perception survey report, when you're looking at staff engagement, sometimes there may be what's called low-hanging fruit. These are the easier items to take care of that show action. So there may be a quick and easy and inexpensive fix that people have brought forward. And by implementing that, that's going to make people happy and show that their perception is being looked at and being addressed. And some of the other items may take a little bit longer to budget for, but you may be able to implement some of those other items to show action. And that really increases staff engagement. Another way to influence safe behavior is, does your dealership ever have an open house? And if so, do they talk about or showcase safety at your dealership? Do you promote or speak about safety improvements at your business? This could be a great idea if you're having an open house. It shows the workers and their families that you care about safety and you're proud of it and you're showing it at your dealership, and that's going to influence safe behavior. So this promotes those improvements, such as, look at this personal protective equipment that we're using in our facility. And it lets people know that we made safety improvements. We've implemented safeguards. Look at the things that we've done for safety. And if people see that their loved ones are working at a safe place, this is going to positively influence safe behaviors, not only at work, but within the community. So just think about that if you are having an open house and how you can incorporate safety into it. I want you to seriously think about something here as we get close to concluding. If you have a pen and paper handy, I want you to take a few seconds and I want you to think about the top 5 people in your life. These are the 5 people that you would never ever want something to happen to, and for them to always be safe and taken care of. So if you don't have a pen, just think about the list in your head. Or if you do have a pen, just jot down the 5 names of the people on your list. Does everyone have their list? How many people listed themselves first? And if not, why not? If something happened to you, would the rest of the people on your list be taken care of? If my behavior was risky and I did not work safe and I ended up hurt, who would provide and care for my family? My family's lifestyle would have to change because they would have to take care of me now. Sometimes we're selfish. We do not behave safely. We take shortcuts. We don't wear the personal protective equipment because we do not care about our own safety. And we don't think about the others in our life and how their lives will change forever if we are hurt. So I want you to think about that. Who would care and provide for your family if something were to happen to you? I encourage you to take action and challenge yourself as we conclude. Be mindful of your behavior and try to influence others to work safe. Take the needed time and do the job right without shortcuts. Be sure your communication is clear and understood. Think about your top 5 people on your list and taking care of yourself, because if you are hurt, it's going to affect others. And remember to behave by example. I wanted to acknowledge Dr. Geller and credit him for much of the information in today's webinar. Dr. Geller is known across the world as a pioneer in the research of people and behavior-based safety. And I'm fortunate to have learned from him directly and receive a green light of approval from him on this webinar you heard today. Thank you, Dr. Geller. So as we conclude, all attendees will receive an email from myself shortly with a blank certificate webinar template. So please feel free to put your name into that certificate and print it off for your records. You will also receive a short survey after this webinar for feedback. And I really welcome what you have to say about this webinar, because this is not a traditional topic that has been put into a webinar before that I've come across. So I'm really looking for some information of what you took out of this webinar. And we're always welcoming future topics of safety within your dealership. So if there are any of those topics, please put them in the comments within the evaluation, or you can email them to myself. So at this time, this concludes our webinar on influencing safe behaviors. And if you do have questions that you may think of down the road, you can give us a call at the number on the slide. Our website is on the screen, as is our email address. We've marked June 15th, 2016 for the date of our next webinar, and we're going to always be looking for that next topic. So I'm just going to check now if there are any questions, and if not, let me see. Looks like I don't have any questions in this box. I'm just going to check the other one, and looks like there are no questions that came forward. So as I mentioned, if some questions do arise, feel free to contact us after the webinar as well. So with that, I'd really like to personally thank you for taking the time to join us in the webinar, Influencing Safe Behaviors. Thank you.